Hello viewers, Lorenzo here. This is KSP to Mars episode 63, and we rejoin the action here with the Prometheus, with its brave pilot just shutting down the nuclear reactors. And if you have watched any previous episodes, that means that a burn has just completed and they're now just settling in for a multi-month waiting period. And if I get him back inside the capsule, I can show you the trajectory data. We have reduced our orbit around the Sun to have a periapsis of about 8.5 million kilometers. Now, where's the entry hatch? It's on the other side. 8.5 million kilometers, and for comparison, the Photon Sailor never made it to lower than about 11 million kilometers. So here's hoping that 8.5 will in fact count as low solar space. And we have reduced our orbital velocity here to just under 10 kilometers per second. For comparison, the Earth's orbital velocity is about 35 kilometers per second, 33, something in that area, and its altitude is 150 million kilometers. And we are now going to approach to 8.6 million kilometers. That's hella close. And if we take a peek at the alarm clock, we see that the Venus transfer window for the Hephaestus will not come up for about 109 days more, so we can time warp forwards to this periapsis at 73 days. I'm just going to add this maneuver to make the alarm clock do its thing, and so then we're going to time warp forwards to that periapsis, and we will see whether or not that actually counts as low space. I forgot to turn off the fusion reactor, which is of course also important. Deactivate the reactor. We want to conserve our fuel. And if you had a look at the nav ball, our speed over the surface of the Sun is really huge. Wonderful. Our orbital speed less so. So let us accelerate time. We are now at 1 million times time acceleration, which should bring that Sun into view momentarily, reducing that. Ooh, look at that. It's almost appearing as large as it is in the Kerbal space program. We're now at a mere 10 million kilometers distant from it. I wonder if that has an effect on our heat. No, the radiators are still perfectly efficient. Ooh, wonderful. This is getting really large here in the screen. We should probably go closer just because we can. The burn took a lot of fuel, but we're not at our fuel halfway point just yet, which means that we could lower our periapsis further. And well, if this doesn't turn out to be the low side of the solar system, I have trouble deciding what to call that, then we might very well have to do that. Of course, we don't strictly need an equal amount of delta V to get back to Earth. Just any orbit would do, because then we could just send a tanker to top off the Prometheus and, well, have it get millions of delta V again. But it would be nice to, not get stranded. In the worst case scenario, because we will still almost automatically to get on Earth encounter at some point, except it's just our relative speed will be about 20-25 kilometers per second. We could use this capsule with the heat shield to just straight enter into the atmosphere, but that would probably be very hazardous. So I would prefer to put the mothership in orbit first and then descend slowly. So at our periapsis here, well, not quite at the periapsis yet, but shouldn't make much of a difference. No, it won't. So let's have a look at our science instruments. The materials bay here. It unfortunately still does count as a materials study while high over the Sun. And you know what that means? That means we are going to schedule another burn to make this get closer to the Sun. Let me just manually add an alarm for the apoapsis, then we get it just right on the dot. Apoapsis, Prometheus, lowering, burn 2. Boom, at the alarm. And now we see that what's coming up first is our transfer window to Venus. So we're going to accelerate time forward to that and then switch over to the Hephaestus to make a transfer window for that one. That interesting mission, if you haven't watched the previous episodes, it's a single stage to everywhere fusion drive ship that is going to land in one piece on Venus and hopefully take off from that again. An ambitious mission to be sure, but I have a reasonable high hopes for its success. That means I'm estimating about 25% success rate. I just pulled that number out of a hat because of course we will make it. Well, we'll definitely make it there, but if we'll make it back, that's of course the question. So let's see, we're now at a near enough point, just 1 day. So, oh yeah, this is not ship bound, so I'm going to do that through the Space Center. And here we are with the Hephaestus. Enfol has re-energized the reactor. It's the biggest fission reactor we have here, and it's producing at 25% activity just over 2.3 gigawatts of thermal power. And now, as we demand more by energizing the fusion drive, the control rods will be actuated and the drive will be switched to 55%, 55.793% activity, which will generate 5 gigawatts of thermal energy. On top of that nuclear reactor, we will find a KTEC solid state generator that will take that 5 gigawatts of thermal power and produce 2.5 gigawatts of electric power, which in turn is used to fire the lasers, I think these are them, on our fusion engine that ignite the deuterium and tritium pellets shooting out the rear there. That's how our fusion ship works, and it's rocketing off to Venus. We're not going for a direct encounter here, and that is because we are again on opposite sides of the inclination. Well, that's a convoluted way of saying things. Anyway, the ascending and descending nodes are here, and we are here, and that means it's very hard for us to make a change that will well, put us in a intercepting orbit. Instead, we're going to go for a mid-course correction at our nearest ascending or descending node. Now for this burn, I put the engine in 50% thrust mode. That means the specific impulse is 30,000 seconds, and by doing that, instead of going for full thrust, I've lengthened the burn from 5 to 10 minutes, but I've also basically given myself another 3 kilometers per second of delta V in the rocket. And 10 minutes is short in terms of burn times for this series so far. We have had multi-hour ion burns, and of course the Prometheus takes a very, very long time to get up to speed as well with its pulse and go system. Now with this I could probably even energize physical time warp, but I'm going to hold off on that one, courtesy of this being a very well, not very large ship, but it has 100 parts, so physical time warp might screw things up. Instead, I will, well, just cut the video like you're used to and reconvene as soon as something interesting happens. And we have the Prometheus, yes, this is alright, we have the Prometheus at its apoapsis in 38 days, and I think that will be the first event to come around. Possibly, if the ascending node happens quickly, we will get that course correction first, but probably we will see the Prometheus next, so see you in the future. And there we have it, the burn almost complete, and a wonderful spectacular shot of the Hephaestus leaving the Earth behind. So let's cut the drive there. Take a second to take in the scenery. Look at that, bye bye planet Earth. It will be a long time before Enfol gets to see some green again. It will be purple from now on. Yeah, and well, considering the track record of our space program, purple might very well be the last color he ever sees. Oh dear, might we run into some tritium problems? Well, not before taking off from Venus, but possibly in the end stages. So at some point I better leave the reactor on to breed some of that stuff, and I'm going to start with that right away. We have enough uranium anyway, this is not close to running out. So I'm going to leave the reactor on for now, because that will breed tritium, which is used in the fusion engine. Right, so we are sort of on course. We have our solar periapsis around Venus's altitude, and now of course all that we need to do is time warp forwards to solar space so we can set up a alarm clock node with the proper time for an ascending or descending node for the final mid-course correction. So let's go ahead and do that now. It's the alarm clock that's making a fuss. Oh, it's the actual transfer window that's happening. Yeah, we figured that out. We were doing that burn. This alarm clock is very useful, but it's not sentient. It doesn't like predict what you're doing and adapts its alarms for that. But maybe that is too much to ask. I mean, we're working with fusion engines, but our alarm clock is still just an alarm clock. Well, still I'm really happy with it. So go on into the solar sphere of influence you go. I was going to say into the sun you go, but that is of course not quite the plan. So yeah, solar orbit established. Well, it was never really unestablished, but yeah, set that as a target, and we get our ascending node here, 3.4 degrees, and this happens in 71 days. So that means we get to go to the Prometheus first, and that means I'm just going to set an alarm for, it was the ascending node here, kill warp, yeah, sure, course change, add alarm there, and that means we get to go to the Prometheus now. Jump to ship, and I will go ahead and perform a series of pulsed burns. I'm thinking of dropping the periapsis to, well, let's just halve it again and go for 4 million kilometers. I think that should be a nice, ambitious, low level. So I'm going to take care of that, and we'll reconvene when that has happened. And when that has happened, I mean, of course, the actual course correction, because then we can alternate back to the Hephaestus for that course correction. Yeah, these two missions are overlapping a lot, so see you again in the future. And here we rejoin the action just as Prometheus dips below the halfway level of her fuel. That means roughly that she's expended 50% of her available delta V reserves. Now I can hear you thinking, what the hell are you talking about? Rockets clearly have a lot more delta V in the second half of their tank than they do in the first half, because of course after the first half has been expended, the mass of the spacecraft has shrunk considerably. Now this is of course true, but it's less true with a ship like this than with a conventional rocket that has like 90% of its mass fuel. Here with the Prometheus, most of the mass is in fact nuclear reactor, payload, drive assembly and radiator fins. Of course, the fuel still has mass, so the second half of the tank still does provide a bit more delta V than the first half, but the difference isn't anywhere near as big as it is with a conventional rocket. So, to matter, we are now in a 155 million kilometer orbit by 4.7 million kilometers, and we're going to loop around once more and check out whether that in fact counts as low solar space. If it does not, we will have to expend more fuel, and as long as we don't dip below like the quarter level, I am confident that we will at least be able to make it back into Earth's sphere of influence, and there we can have a more or less controlled, chaotic, horrible re-entry. And, well, the severity of that terror will depend on the altitude of low solar space. So that's what we're exploring. Yeah. So, let's put an alarm in for the periapsis. Prometheus science report. And we can see that that will happen in 70 days, and our Hephaestus course change for Venus will happen in 36 days, and that of course means that we're now switching back to the Hephaestus. Hey, that's wonderful. Worked it out. I will do the course correction and then update you on the state of affairs, as we've come to expect from these kind of shenanigans. And as promised, right on cue, here we have the Hephaestus in deep space, setting up an encounter with Venus. Let's have a look at that. That will be about 83 days from now. And a quick peek will put that, well, just another leap behind the Prometheus's new periapsis. So before going to that point, let's see if we can get this periapsis as low as possible. Now what we want to do when we're at Venus is establish a medium high orbit. I'm thinking 400 to 500 kilometers. Reason being is that I want to scrub full orbital velocity, or almost all of it, before hitting atmosphere. So while I'll be decelerating, I'll be falling, and then at about 200 kilometers I want to be traveling at about 1 kilometer per second, hit atmosphere, and then just basically float down like a leaf in Venus's thick atmosphere. Yeah, sounds like a good plan in my opinion. So I'm going to just see what I can do with burning pro and retrograde to get this 155,000 kilometer periapsis down a little bit lower. Yeah, there we go. Accelerating that encounter. And that's 70,000 kilometers. I'm happy with that because when I get to Venus's sphere of influence, I can change that for probably just a few hundred meters per second. And with these fusion drives, those amounts are very well expendable. I probably just put the drive at 10% thrust, so that would mean an ISP of 95,000, just under 6 digits, causing it to use no fuel at all. Well, some fuel will be used, but you get what I mean. Right, so now let's get on with one other thing. The shutting down of the reactor, because we have generated in this 70-day coast, we have generated probably enough tritium for the whole mission, and we have expended about 10% of our uranium already, so we want to lower that a bit, and therefore Enfel is going to shut down the reactor for he's going on EVA while the ship is tumbling a bit, but nothing he can't compensate for with his trusty jetpack. Wow, this must be nauseating for our poor friend. He hops over to the reactor, puts it in shutdown, and now he gets to find his airlock while it is tumbling up and down under robot control. There we go, board. Wonderful. So let's just save that to be sure and move on back to the Prometheus. And I will see you at its periapsis, and we will see, no wait, that's all we have to do is go to the periapsis, so we can just do that time warp in this session. Not much use cutting around for that. So we can delete this fastest movement node, and I hope it added a sphere of influence transition automatically, so I didn't forget that. Wonderful. So 34 days until periapsis on this ship. Let's just double check if these reactors are offline. They are actually not offline. Damn it, I forgot. So here we have lots of tritium as well, and dwindling amounts of uranium. Although I'm making a problem where there isn't one, we still have more than half. So let's not fuss about too much with the reactors now, and just time warp until our periapsis of, what was it, 4.8 million kilometers? Let's have a look at that. These camera positions when zooming in, when switching map views or loading a vessel, they're quite strange. 4.78 million kilometers. So let's see how close that sun will get. Fairly close. Still growing. We're at 7 million kilometers now. This is approximately where we were on the previous pass. Look at how close we're going to get. It's actually looking like a big star. If I recall, this is about the size that it looks. Well, no, it's smaller still from the stock Kerbin altitude, although I don't remember. It's been so long. It's been so long since I spent any time in the stock game. Oh, lament me. Oh, no. No. This real solar system malarkey is good. So, let's have a look at our science. Fingers crossed. It's still high over the sun. That means that we are going to bring it down to, well, let's say 2 million kilometers, give or take. And that means that we are going to dip well into the reserve amount of fuel, jeopardizing the safe return of Carrick and Guzri. Well, what's got to be done? It's got to be done. We could decrease the thrust on these engines and thus correspondingly increasing. Yes, I'm going to do that, but not drastically. I'm going to go for 45. Now let's decrease it to 40. This here is this slider is balancing between pains. Over here, it is certain doom for the Kerbals. Over here, it is death of boredom for me. So I'm going to put that at 40. See, I value my crew members. I want them to not die. So there we go, 40% thrust. So let's save that so that setting remains, and add another alarm for when we get at that apoapsis point again, shall we? Go for apoapsis, add the alarm 70 days from now, and that means we can now switch back to the Hephaestus to see how it gets to Venus. I will do that sphere of influence transition and establish an orbit around the planet, where I will reconvene with you, dear viewer. As promised, reconvention here at the point where we're breaking into Venus orbit, and I realize I've completely forgotten to do the science in space, the crew reports, the EVA reports, and we're already in space near Venus. So instead of a straight circularization, I'm just going to go for an elliptical orbit here, make one more pass high over the planet, and get all that science in, and of course get it for recovery as well, because that has never happened before. The probes have passed here, they've radioed their gravity readings, their goo and material bay observations, but it's never been returned to Earth before. So this is of course why we're here, and yeah, that will postpone the actual landing by a day or so. So bear with me while I complete this burn, and then we will do some science. And a blip and a jiffy later, here we are in high orbit over Eve, Venus. So let's do our sciences. Let's start with a crew report. Well, we can transmit that home. Can't help but notice how incredibly purple the planet is. These shiny oceans are mesmerizing. Wonderful. So let's transmit that home, because we can do it for 100%, so why not do so? So now of course we have to activate some of our instruments. We can go for a goo canister, and this has no transmission value left because we did that already, but we're going to keep it with us. And now I'm lamenting the fact that I've only brought 2 material bays. I'm going to save them for the surface, but well, at some points I could have had, but well, won't, because I only brought 2, and I didn't bring a science lab to fix them up. So yeah, that can be classified as a mission design oversight, but oh well, stuff like that happens. Let's have a look at these science meters. I'm rotating the craft so that it is in the sunlight. Have a look at the gravity data, 87 science there, let's keep that as well. I think temperature data won't work here, so yeah, no, that doesn't work. Then we have the magnetometer data, which it was nice to take home, but won't work. Well, it will work. I can't take it out and store it in the pod, but it if all goes well, this whole craft will return, so let's keep that regardless. And I can't do these on the surface, so I might as well do them here. So then we have some data here on this end, and of course in the goo canister. So we're going to go ahead and send Enfal out to collect that, because even though we can keep it on the outside, we want to reuse these experiments, so we need Enfal to grab that. Of course an EVA report as well, 56 from that. Keep that as well. This is the start of a wonderfully fruitful science mission. And I place these strategically next to the ladder, so he can just grab them from there. Yeah, that's all he can get from here, and of course we have to, so much for the strategic ladder. We have to go and get that goo canister. Of course we use the one on the other side. Now, if we had a sentient AI, it would turn on the fusion drive now. Fortunately, we have a plain old non-sentient AI that harbors no ill feelings towards any of our crew, which I suppose Enfal will be happy with. So let's grab that data, move that, and there are the first several hundred science points of this marvelous mission. And that's also where I'm going to leave the episode today. I just about have to leave to go to the airport, and that will mark the last activity of my day, so that means I can render the episode and upload it before tomorrow happens, which is always good. I think you'll agree. So let's have a look at the data, transmit the EVA report home, and keep the rest for collection. So wonderful. So the plan for the next episode, we will have no more time skipping, no more mucking about with Prometheus. I just invented that. With Prometheus time windows. We're just playing around on Venus here, so check back for the next episode where we'll do science near Eve's periapsis, which is the boring part, and then we'll attempt a landing with this Hephaestus single stage to everywhere vessel. We'll burn a lot of delta V, slowing down this orbital speed, and then we hope to gently float through the atmosphere to a safe landing for flag planting, surface sample collection, and of course copious amounts of science points. I'm Lorenzo, thanks for watching again, and of course I would much appreciate you pressing all those social buttons. That helps my channel get discovered by everyone else and increases my YouTube fame, which is amazing. So thanks for that, and I'll see you guys next time.